Happy Tuesday, everybody. So on Tuesdays, we do community deck techs, and we've got 4 submissions this week. So thanks for submitting your deck on the community tab. The first one here is by Glanrespector, and is sort of similar to the Boros Tokens deck that we've seen popping up in the tournaments that I talked about on Saturday, or on Sunday, and on Monday. And not deciding to run red. So the downside is that we don't have the Urbrask's Forge combo with Caretaker's Talent that's drawing us a card every turn. But the upside is that it's mono, it's one color, so we're going to have a little bit more mana consistency. We still have a lot of the same cards, though, like Carrot Cake to create tokens, same with the Archangel Elspeth and the Virtue of Loyalty. And then we've got the Sweepers of Sunfall. This one's not running any temporary lockdowns, but we've got the Starfall Invocation. And one of the things that's nice about this card is that you can destroy all of the creatures and then bring back your Beza the Bounding Spring, which is the only creature in this list. And gives you additional value. You do have to give your opponent a card to do so, but I've seen people exploring that. Also with the Parting Gust, right? So you're able to bounce your creature and have it come back in and re-trigger its ETB, which can be a really nice stabilizing force. You can also use this as removal if you want to give them a tapped fish, and because then it just says straight up exiles target non-token creature. We've also got one Get Lost, and we've got Lay Down Arms as kind of the interaction for the deck, and Season of the Burrow allows us to create a whole bunch of bunnies, or you have to return a permanent with mana value 3 or less, so you can bring back like a Caretaker's Talent that got blown up, or a Carrot Cake. Otherwise, you're just exiling something that's a problematic threat. And we've got the Fountain Port for being able to draw off of our tokens. So they Glonk requested that I help them build a best of 3 sideboard, so I gave it my best shot, right? So this is what I would be running, at least for like attempt number 1. And this one's got, so it's got 2 Destroy Evils. I think Destroy Evil is going to be a really nice one to bring in because of all of the talent decks, whether it's the Caretaker's Talent in Boros Tokens, or in the one turn kill with Vraska and Innkeeper's Talent. We're going to want to see some enchantment hate, and maybe actually even run it in the main. But so I think Destroy Evil is looking pretty good. Lorn of the Third Path I included for artifact hate, so you get additional enchantment hate, but also able to hit artifacts if you're coming up against a problematic artifact like Urbrask's Forge is a pretty popular one. We'll see. Domain used to be running the Cornucopia, been kind of favoring the Heaped Harvest. So maybe the artifact isn't as necessary, but I think it's a nice option to have. I decided to bring in 4 copies of the Temporary Lockdown. It might be a little bit overkill. I think maybe you could get away with 3. But the Temporary Lockdown is really nice against the Boros Convoke, the Go Wide, the Celestine Rabbits, anything that's got that like early presence where you need to just kind of like put on the brakes, right? Elspeth Smite, I think, is probably your best option for mono red aggro, and gives you that instant speed. I think I might even actually try exploring the Elspeth Smite over the Lay Down Arms. Just something to consider, because this does give you the instant speed if you want to like pop a slick shot show off, especially if you're in best of 1. I think I would lean towards the Elspeth Smite over the Lay Down Arms. Kutzel's Flanker is another one too that we see a lot of. So the Graveyard Hate isn't as necessary in this meta as it was prior to rotation, but the gaining 2 life and scrying 2 and being able to play a 3/1 that can trade with something is pretty good in certain matchups. I really like it in mono red aggro, being able to create a blocker that they don't expect, and that gaining 2 life and scrying 2 can help. So I would explore playing that. Sarah Paragon, I think, has some really interesting synergies with this deck because of being able to bring back Carrot Cake and then gain the 5 life when you sacrifice it again. So I think this could be a way to kind of, similar to the Season of the Burrow, right? Just is another way to kind of bring back this as a stabilizing force. Could be good. Might be worth exploring. Maybe 2 is a little bit overkill. And then I think the Wandering Emperor. So is if we start to see more direct enchantment hate for this kind of deck and artifact hate, for the carrot cakes and for the caretaker's talent, I kind of want some form of alternative win condition that isn't as easily disrupted by that strategy, especially for best of three. And so you've already got the Archangel Elspeth, and I think maybe bringing in one Eternal Wanderer could be a decent one to include, because you also have that same kind of parting gust feeling coming from it. So you can exile a creature and then return it to the battlefield at the beginning of your next instep, and so you can do that with Beza and re-trigger the stabilizing ETB of Beza. So something to consider for you. All right, the second submission was C. Marin's, quote, absolutely perfect Mythic Orzhov Plainswalkers times Caretaker's Talent combo. And maybe I'm missing the combo in this deck, because in my mind a combo is more like a one-turn kill, but it definitely has really great synergies. So we've seen this archetype before. This one is the one that I would usually call this one Orzhov Superfriends. And we have some amazing planeswalkers in black-white. So we've got Liliana of the Veil. We've got Kaya, Spirit's Justice, also creates tokens. Ashiok also creates tokens. The Kaya Intangible Slayer. Vraska, although we don't have any one-turn kill with Vraska Betrayal's Sting, it still works relatively well as a win condition by itself. And then we have the Wandering Emperor that I was talking about that synergizes particularly well with being able to bounce Beza, which this list is not running. Since we're leaning away from any form of creature, that way all of our planeswalkers are not touched by our opponent's Sunfall, which is really the most popular card in the control meta right now. And so I like where they're going. It's very similar to the control Orzhov build that I showcased on Sunday during my Meta Breakers. And basically taking away the Phyrexian Arena and running the Caretaker's Talent, which is great because you don't lose life. You're still able to enable the draw off of this because you have a lot of things that create tokens. I really like the Bandit's Hall in this one too, because if you're going to run this many Planeswalkers and really push the later end of your curve, like this is quite an expensive deck, Bandit's Hall then able to ramp you up your curve. And then you also have the synergy of Liliana the Veil. If you make them sacrifice a creature, triggers a crime, helps you get additional draw off of your Bandit's Hall. We do have the removal of Go for the Throat and Get Lost for the single point instant speed interaction. And we have the temporary lockdowns and the Sunfalls for the go wide strategies. So nice to add a little bit of the card draw to kind of help counteract what I think would be a problem for this deck potentially, which is the mono black discard. And we've got the Virtue of Persistence, which isn't going to be able to play back anything from our board, but hopefully we can play something back from theirs. And we have the No Witnesses, kind of replacing a Depopulate. And since it's absolutely perfect, I've got little to add to it. It looks like a fun deck. And thank you for sharing it there, C. Marin. The third submission was by Tim Back Trucking, and this one is kind of a Jeskai, blue, red, white, blue tokens space. So we do have the Urabrask's Forge and the Caretaker's Talent, which I really like this combination. I think that's kind of the core of the Boros Tokens deck that has been performing so well in the tournament scene. We also have the Hop to It, Form a Posse, and Song of Totentons, which are all creating tokens. War Leader's Call, then giving everything +1/+1 and pinging your opponent for every time that a token enters the battlefield. We've got an Impa Call for a little bit of recurring tokens over the long run. And Lassoed by the Law is removal and creates a token. I'm not sure I like it in Constructed. I think it's a little bit expensive, especially because we're going to see more enchantment hate to counteract the Caretaker's Talent, which then makes the O-Rings play worse, at least in theory. So right now, maybe people aren't mainboarding enchantment hate, but I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see some down the road. So keep that in mind. May want to look at an alternative. I'm not even sure the 1/1 token is really worth being able to choose like the 4 mana compared to ossification, right? You do get to hit non-land permanents though, so I you know I'm just not 100% sold on it yet. The other thing too is the mana is a little bit tight in this deck. So just to talk really quickly about how I look at decks and their mana builds, right? Is I look at like what's the constraining piece for each color. So your turn 1 play would be Shock. You don't necessarily need to do this on turn 1, but if you did, you'd want 14 sources of red. This one's running 13, which makes it more of a consistent turn 2 play. The restricting one for white is Sunfall. The double pip white is sometimes people underestimate how difficult it is to cast a double pip white card, but Sunfall wants 15 sources of white to be able to cast it on turn 5 90% of the time. And so you're short 2 white for your Sunfalls and you're short 1 red for your Shock. Now, the reason why you're doing that is to bring in the third color, blue, for Ral Crackling Wit. And I love the idea of giving a large X instant or sorcery storm because it'll copy it with that X value and you get twice as many tokens. And you can pop off pretty hard with Ral's Crackling Wit's ultimate. And since the majority, if not, the majority of the deck is non-creature spells outside of an Imp Call, you've got a fair amount of ways of triggering Ral. Now, it works better though if you're doing like small spells, right? So since most of this is centered around the CMC3, it's not really like a Storm deck that you would, like if you were to build around Ral, right? So I'm not sure I agree entirely with the inclusion of Ral because of how much it taxes the mana. If you could figure out how to get to 14 red and 15 white while simultaneously having the 10 blue that you need to be able to play Ral on turn 4, that would be a little bit better. But with the current mana base that you're running, I think it's definitely stretched too thin for me to feel comfortable with it if I were to run it myself. So I would be tempted to take out Ral and just keep it focused to the Boros Tokens kind of area. And that being said, though, I think Caretaker's Talent is such a good card that I want to see this at 4 copies, especially because we have the Urbrask's Forge. So I would either make this 4 and this 4, or you could go with the War Leader's Call and the Song of Totentons being at 4. I do think this one is better than the Forma Posse, so I'd be tempted to bring in a 4th copy of Song of Totentons. It's just cheaper, doesn't require both colors of mana to be able to play, and giving you that haste so that you can immediately beat in with the tokens that you're playing, right? But we've had Song of Totentons since the Wilds of Eldraine, and the War Leader's Call. Like, people have explored the Song of Totentons. That was a big thunder. War Leader Call combo, and it really wasn't quite enough to make it work just on its own, right? So I think that I would be leaning more towards the Caretaker's Talent and the Urbrask's Forge, because that's kind of like what we're seeing in the tournament scene, and I know that like drawing a card every turn, like that seems pretty great. So, you know, something like bring the Song of Totentons up to 4, take out the Forma Posse, bring the Urbrask's Forge up to 4 and the Caretaker's Talent up to 4, and then maybe you could drop the Hop Tuits and the Ral, something like that, right? But then you start looking a lot like the Boros Tokens deck that everybody else is running. So the War Leader's Call, I think, is what, and the Song of Totentons is what's giving you a unique twist to this deck. And so I'd love to hear in, you know, what's your experience been like with Ral? Has it been worth playing? Does the mana not work out as well as it looks like on paper? Really curious about this deck, so thank you for sharing it. The other thing too, so I mentioned Lassoed by Law. Personally, I would be on something that's less expensive and not as prone to the disenchant weakness of this deck. And along those lines of a way that we could kind of improve it from being prone to getting blown up by the disenchant, similar to what I was talking about with Glanrespector's mono white tokens build, which is running the Plainswalkers of Archangel Elspeth or the Eternal Wanderer, which both synergize with the token strategy. and plays around the Sunfall. So something to consider. You know, I always feel a little nervous about these. I don't want to be overly negative because people really love the decks that they've built, and I'm trying to help out. So if you disagree with me, that's totally fine. All right, and the fourth list is what should we call this? Is it Prowess Skeletons? Does it have a name? Anyway, this one was submitted by a Clarano Moss Robot, and they've submitted one like this before in the past, so we've worked on this through several of these community deck techs, and they've acknowledged the fact that it is neither mono black skeletons nor is it mono red prowess, that it also doesn't have any of the cards from the Bloomburrow. But they love the space so much that they're just really trying to maximize it and make it really work. And, I like that, more power to you. We have the 14 sources of black for a turn 1 play. We have the 14 sources of red for a turn 1 red play. So 90% of the time you should be okay with this mana split. I think that looks good. You have the core pieces of prowess being like you don't have the combat tricks, and you don't have the ability to sling your your slick shot show off for a consistent turn 3, but you do have the direct damage of shock and lightning strike to go to their face, and you do have the skeleton synergies of the Forsaken Miner, the Cult Conscript, and the Corpses of the Lost, giving half of your deck haste, the other half already having haste. So you've explored a couple of options throughout the weeks. I've noticed here that you've got a Disfigure in instead of the Cut Down. And it works, like you were saying, that is meta. Coming up against the mono red decks that have the Heartfire Hero, it does save you 1 life, or sometimes maybe more. Maybe it saves you 2 life, compared to the Cut Down. But largely the same thing. Instant speed interaction, good at destroying small things. You still have to play around them, increasing the toughness, where then this can backfire. But I think, honestly, Disfigure and Cut Down feel similar, comparable to me, so I don't feel strongly one way or the other about which one you decide to run. There is 1 copy of Duress in here, and it's really because everything else in the list is 4, and then there's 3 Stingerback Terrors. So this deck doesn't have any of the card draw. You don't have the Ember Heart that you're getting additional dig out of, so you are going to be hellbent in this deck relatively quickly. And to make that a good thing, you can run the Stingerback Terrors. So you would need a higher amount of red sources in this deck if you wanted to cast this on turn 4 without plotting it, but we're most likely, with the 20 lands that we've got going on in this deck, plotting this on turn 3 and then playing it when we're hellbent. The one thing that I don't like about the Stingerback Terror is that it doesn't have haste. So I would be really curious about, I get the idea of Duress. There's a lot of, Mono Red Prowess, Rakdos Prowess. They all have these spells that you're going to be able to take. The one that's most creature spell heavy is the Celestia Rabbits, where the only thing you're going to hit is the Season of the Burrow. So you're going to hit a good chunk of the meta with the Duress. Some matchups, it's going to be a whiff, right? I think Felonious Rage could be an interesting one to include, right? Because we know it works well with the Prowess builds. It's a cheap spell. It gives you haste, which this deck isn't really struggling with because of the Corpse of the Lost, but it gives your Stingerback Terror haste, and that way you can hit in for 9 damage. And I think I like it more, especially because that 2/2 body. I think some of these stuff Forsaken Miner trading with something and then coming back and spawning the 2/2 that you then pull this back from the graveyard later after you shoot them with one of your shocks or your lightning strikes. I don't know, could be a fun one to explore. I think I would like it more than the Duress, just personally, because I hate it when this card whiffs. But it does give you card information. It does give you hand information to play around against what your opponent's plays are. So that would just be my suggestion. The deck looks really fine-tuned. I like where it's at, and thank you for sharing it. So if you would like to hear my feedback on a deck that you're working on, every week I post, while I post this video, I also post your deck list here in the community tab. So it's kind of, at the moment, it hasn't been more than 4 or 5 decks each week. So if it ever does become more popular, then I'll have to kind of pick them at random. I don't really want to do it as a first come first serve, but you have the entire week to submit your deck until I get ready to make this video. So thanks for being a part of my community. I can't believe that I've hit 3,000 subscribers, and this last week has been absolutely insane with rotation. Thank you so much. Most successful videos I've ever had for my meta reviews, and it's really exciting to be a Magic content creator during rotation, because usually, like last year, I started in September around rotation, but didn't have anything like this. So thank you everybody for listening to my ramblings, and I hope these find you well, and good luck with your games. And I will be posting some draft videos throughout the week, and then on Friday I'll try to do a game video. I'm starting a new job, so not entirely sure that I'll be able to spend as much time as I have been on doing Magic the Gathering content, but I will only know by trying. And then Saturday, I'll be showcasing the Boros Tokens deck that I've been obsessing about, that has been looking really well. Actually give that a trial run on the Best of One ladder. And then Sunday, Meta Breakers, and then Monday, another Best of One, Best of Three meta review. So that's the general schedule. I'm rambling long enough on this outro. Apologize. Take care, everybody.